Hello, Made to Thrive Nation. For everyone listening out there, this is an X-rated episode, but one that is crucially important, all about your sexual health. I've got Deborah Kagan on the show. She's just written a new book that's going to be launched, from what I know, in October. So it is on pre-order, and hopefully we can get as many pre-orders as possible. Undressed, and it's your invitation to claim your erotic nature. It's a privilege to have you on the show, Deborah. You've got a brilliant podcast as well called Undressed. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be with you.
Brilliant. I want to start from, I actually had tears just reading your copy that was sent, especially on I think it's the second or third page. But for everybody listening out there, just listen to this, because your sexuality, your intimacy, and your sexual health is crucially important. And we're going to get from Deborah herself the why, people should care about their sexuality. But listen carefully. In honor of every woman's stolen pleasure, I reclaim it. You're healing my narrative of how I speak, treat, think, feel, and embody my sexuality and practice with pleasure. It is my right to have gooey connection. God created sex, and I'm seeing sex as a sacred art, the highest meditation, the most creative prayer. Breathing in and out, satisfactory presence, mind-blowing intimacy is my blessing. The right here is pure. This is good. This is holy. And again, this is pure. What wonderful words. What an incredible book. I'm going to do as much as I can to get it out there. I just want to say well done to you, and thank you so much. I honor and celebrate you and just who you are, and just your voice. And why don't you just give the listeners and the audience on YouTube, why did you write this book, Undressed, an invitation to claim your erotic nature?
There's no real kind of smart answer to that, except I didn't have a choice. It's one of those things that really came through me, and it was a long birth. It was about a decade, but the seed of the idea was planted. I used to do a lot of spoken word events. I live in Los Angeles, California. And so I found that as I was waking up again to my own divine feminine, to my own true embodied wisdom as a woman, and owning my own sense of sexuality, eroticism, and internal power in this particular body, that I started to write about sex, and I started to write about my yoni, and I started to write these stories that were fun, except they also had this level of spirituality to them. They had this level of soul to them, and they had a different level of consciousness to them. And they were always about how we connect intimately with ourselves and with our partners. So this started the wheels turning. And this is almost 20 years ago, of those spoken word events and getting active in that way. And then all of a sudden I got this download of these stories, and they all happened to me because the book is structured in the 7 sections based on the 7 power centers of the body, the chakras. And that also came to me because I thought, well, what am I doing with these stories? And what I discovered was the experiences in the memoir pieces of the book. They are experiences I had with different lovers that had the qualities, that had the energy, the embodiment, the essence of each of these power centers, and how that awoke and really turned the volume dial up on them in my own beingness. So that's how it sort of began to take shape. And my work is focused on supporting women in rocking their mojo, which is life force. You know all about this from your wellness practice, right? It's the same thing. It's chi, it's ki, it's prana if we're a yogi. I mean, so these words are interchangeable. What I realized was that women were aching for a way to be able to talk about these things and be able to drop shame around all of their own sense of sexuality, because certainly in America and in many other places in the world, but definitely in America, there's an extraordinary amount of shame around our own sense of ourselves, our bodies, and definitely our sexuality.
Brilliant. Thanks for the backstory there, Deborah. And I like to give a sort of a frame why should people care about their sexuality? So I want to speak about that, and then give people a reason to believe. So I want to talk about some real avatars in terms of, I know the thousands that you've helped, but 2 possible avatars, hopefully, a male and female. If you can just talk about a history and sort of transformation process through your work, I think that'd be important. And then tell people what they need to know and tell them what they need to do. So that would be sort of the 4 pillars of the table that we want to build in this podcast. But why should people care about their sexuality?
We all got here because 2 people had sex. Okay, so we were all birthed from this. We were all birthed from a woman's body. And the way we got there is because there was an intimacy that happened, whether it was consensual or not, that's, another story. And whether, frankly, people have said to me, but what about all the, humans that are created in labs now? And with all, I said, well, that too, because we do have just the biological a sperm and an egg, and the 2 of them combined, that is a moment of sex. And I think let's just go back for a second, because what we need to first speak about is the fact that everything is energy. And quantum physics has proven this at this point, right? In the 1960s, I love this example. It's Peter Higgs, who he and his team in the 60s discovered what's called the Higgs-Boson. They also nicknamed it the God particle. And this is the energy behind all energy that moves everything in life. It's the energy that makes the grass grow. It's the energy that makes the rose, bloom. It's the energy that makes the birds. It is the MOJO. That's right. It is the chi, it's the ki, it's the prana. It's what metaphysicians have known for thousands and thousands of years. But of course, now we have science that has proven it for us. So I love that, because we can say, hey, by the way, we're not crazy. So when we look at the fact that everything is energy, and particularly that life force energy, that is the thing that we will actually want to be concerned with and really pay attention to most. When you have a connection to that energy, and now you incorporate that into your sex life, this is where we can really create massive amounts of healing for our bodies, for our minds, and for our souls as well. Because when the majority of sex, and I know this through working with many, thousands of people over certain women. That's my, my community, my ladies, as I like to call them. We're not taught how to actually connect our life force, our mojo, into our lovemaking, right? It is that is not a conversation that happens on a regular basis. But when those 2 get combined, and they naturally are combined, it's humans and our shame and sort of our psychological issues that separate them. They naturally want to be combined. This is when our sex can be so much more regenerative. It can fuel our bodies. It can be so much more powerful for our health and well-being. I mean, there's incredible amounts of, I'm sure information and studies done now about how orgasm actually boosts our immune system. It helps our, psychological minds. It helps our emotional well-being. So there are all these incredible health benefits. And when it's combined with the consciousness and this ownership of your mojo, that's when you've got rocket fuel. And that's why people should be concerned and want to be connected to their sexual energy. The other example, and I will get to somebody that I've worked with before, but I love bringing this other piece up. Have you ever read the book Think and Grow Rich?
Yeah, Napoleon Hill.
Okay, exactly. So chapter 11 is all about sex transmutation. He's not talking about the act of sex. He's not talking about like being physically intimate. What he's talking about is that sex energy. Now, that phrase can be activating when, again, we don't understand what it is. Sex energy, it's just chi, it's ki, it's prana, it's that Higgs-Boson. It is the life force behind everything. So when we know how to transmute that, meaning move that through your own physical body, have a connection with it, learn how to channel it into your conversations, into your interactions, this is when you become magnetic. This is when you become somebody that is really lit up and full of life. And that is where, you know, for those people who are into manifestation, that's where that can also get increased and become much more powerful. Because there's a quote, he says, those who lack the sex energy, I call it mojo, those who lack the mojo will never be enthusiastic nor inspire others with enthusiasm. So I think that alone is a good reason to get interested in being connected to your sexual energy. So you asked me about somebody that I've worked with. And you know, one woman that came to mind is she came to work with me in my mentorship program, and she married for many years, had a couple children, you know, had done the mom thing, also had a career. Her husband worked as well. She was really disconnected from herself. She had lost like her sense of who she was outside of just mom mode. And the intimacies were getting kind of dry and boring, and she was just struggling. And so when she came to work with me, like any of the women that do, all the work that I share comes under the umbrella of the 4 pillars of MOJO. So I'd love to share those, because I think that would be really useful and helpful for your listeners. Because anytime we're disconnected from our mojo, you haven't lost it. I really want to make that point, because so many people come to me and say, Deborah, I've lost my mojo. I'm like, I know it feels that way, but I promise you, you have not lost it. The volume dial is just either on 0 or, you know, maybe it's on 1 or 2. You just need to learn these tools so you can turn that volume dial back up. So M of mojo, this is all about our mindset. How are you thinking about things? What are your beliefs? And are they your current beliefs? Are they actually your beliefs? Or are they just things that have been passed down from generation to generation, or from your culture or society or your school or your religion, that really has nothing to do with what your true beliefs are, right? So to get a mojo-licious mindset and to get our heads screwed on straight, this is one of the first things that we need to understand. And just like we were talking about, it's understanding that life force is your sex energy, is your chi, it's your ki, your prana, right? Because again, most people don't know that, or think that, or go about their life with that mindset. So to have a very powerful and mojo-licious mindset, this is the first pillar. The second pillar is what I call the oracle. Now, we talked about the first, our life above the neck. This is the mindset. Your oracle is your life below the neck. And this is all about embodiment. This is about getting cozy in the skin that you're in. This is about being in this like rental vehicle that I like to call it. We don't know how long we have this lease for, but this is the vehicle we got. And I call the second pillar the oracle, because what is an oracle? An oracle is an all-seeing, all-knowing, has all the information. And your bodies, and you know this also as a wonderful practitioner, right? That our bodies have all the wisdom. And our bodies really do, keep the information of our lifetime, cellular memory, right? Anyone who's an athlete knows about this, right? So muscle memory. You could not work out for many, 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 many months, but then you go back to the gym, and you might feel a little sluggish, right? It might be a little challenging. However, your body's like, I know how to do these bicep curls, right? I know how to do this squat. And your body really has that information within it. So your body knows everything. And why is it important to be in your body? Well, you have much more power. You have more presence when you are in your body. You can access your mojo because your mojo has a storehouse. It has a place that it lives. It's below the belly button and above the pubic bone. It goes from the front of the body to the back of the body. This is our second power center, but it is the home of all of that creative life force, that mojo. And you see, so if you're only stuck in your head, which many modern day women are, I call it the masculinization of women. They've just, kind of thrown all of their energy, their consciousness to above the neck, because we've been trained that way now. And it's also a safer place to be if you've ever been through any trauma or assault. That's part of my experience. So I had to learn how to reintegrate, how to get back inside my own body. And this is very common for many people who have disassociated, rightfully so, right? So we've got to get back into our oracle. Okay, so that's the second pillar. The third is the J of MOJO, and this is about joining with all the different roles that you play in life. You're a husband, you're a father, right? If you're a podcaster, you also run your business. I mean, you're a healer. So these are all different roles. But if you didn't really understand those aspects of yourself, or if someone said, I don't think you can really start that podcast because people are going to make fun of you, right? And that you might not have ever let that part of you be expressed and let that part of you, really have a life. And this is so common because most humans live from 80 to 90% of one role, pretty much your career role. That's what most humans do these days. And then maybe 20 to 10% of a personal role, whether that be a parent role, a lover role, a spouse role. But all the other stuff, whether you're an artist, whether you're a writer, whether you're an adventurer, whether you're a sports enthusiast, whether you love to cook just for fun, right? But you don't let yourself do that. This is the calling about joining, taking all parts of yourself to really become self-expressed. And when you're self-expressed, you have more confidence, you're more comfortable in your body, and your natural flow of MOJO is there and has the capacity to move through you with much more ease and grace. The last pillar of MOJO, the 4 pillars, is the final O, and this is your oasis. This is the environment that you spend your time in, your home, your office. Again, I'm in Los Angeles. We spend a lot of time in our cars, right? So whatever your environments are, to create them so that they fuel you with MOJO instead of deplete you. So this one woman who came to work with me, she learned about all these 4 pillars. Again, she was in the mentorship program. So it took, she had more time and gave herself more time to really embody and learn and integrate all these tools into her life. And then what ended up happening was, and this actually made me cry because I didn't even think about this when I started my business. Her children started to see the difference in her. And her children started to say, hey, Mom, what is that thing that you're doing? Like, I noticed you were doing this breath work thing. And I noticed you were doing these like sassy hip circles. They didn't call them that, but like they noticed, where you were like moving in the kitchen and like, what are you doing? And she started to teach her kids about this. And her kids actually became more confident as well. And what I realized is when every woman who learns these tools embodies them and integrates them, not only is she helping herself, she's changing the next generation. She's changing what's going on for her children. And I chose not to be a parent. And so the fact that the work that I get to do is affecting other generations is like icing on the cake for me. It's bringing tears to my eyes right now. So
brilliant.
That's
wow.
one of the things.
That's absolutely amazing. Brilliant story, and just transforming people's lives through education, awareness, and empowerment. I've got quite a few questions then, people are asking this question, did you get a sex education, growing up? And they often say no, but we all got a sex education. It might have been a good one. It might have been a bad one. It might have been a poor one. It might have been through magazines. It might have been through movies. It might have been through walking in on our parents. It might have been through our friends, or it might have been through trauma. We all received the sex education, whether we like it or not. And I just love the fact that you're doing all this awareness and education, because I do believe it needs to be shifted. And I think books like yours are very important, and podcasts like yours are very important to take the shame and guilt away, especially for women and for men, because I think that's starting to become more of a problem. I often get in practice, I've been practiced 25 years at the end of this year, and they're like, Doc, the boat's not floating. Can you do something? And it's a small whisper, and there's shame, and they don't come in as, couples or with their spouse. And there's, shame regarding lack of orgasms or lack of libido or lack of being turned on. So I love this little acronym MOJO. And I just want to start with the M being mindset. I think that's important. What mindset, like what is the greatest area of, incorrect belief or wrong mindset that one has to change regarding, your sexuality? I'm sure you see a lot of themes and patterns, or possibly the two greatest, beliefs that you have to change with regards to sexuality.
Yeah, the first thing that really what comes to mind is about desire, and that your desires are not wrong, right? So I think there's so much shame and concern about what you might be into, or what you might want to explore, or what maybe your fantasy is. You don't necessarily even have to go through with it, but I have that desire, I have that thought, that sounds exciting to me. Maybe I'm bad, maybe I'm wrong, and I can't talk about that to anyone. I can't share that, with my partner, because what would they think? That mindset, that's the first thing to look at. Because when we're self-shaming, I mean, there's enough that we have out in the world that, will contribute to our sense of shame. But our self-shame is the first thing to look at, and to start to dialogue with, and to start to understand on a much deeper level. And that is mindset work, right? This is what's happening, life above the neck. It can be connected to some of our, traumas that we had when we were littler, that are still living in our body, and that are giving us messaging based on those experiences, which again are not correct. They're not correct in terms of your present day. All right. They might have been correct for the moment that they happened, but for where you are now as an adult, that again is something in terms of a mindset piece to begin to unpack, and begin to really look at, and ask yourself, is this true? Is this really true for me? So the first piece is to really look at our desires.
Brilliant. And then the oracle, the body, the body always keeps score, having done so much body work, and, this new field of somatic experiencing, and often doing techniques, and trauma gets released on a cellular level, and, all the different processes that you can do in treatments. But what do you think the greatest problem is with regards to body? And I've seen a significant issue with hormonal dysfunction, doing functional medicine for 17 years. Now we've got, estrogen dominance. Most females don't know that they got 20 times more testosterone in their bodies than estrogen. We've seen testosterone levels drop by 50% in the last 20 years. It's a real problem. In fact, the millennial generation is probably the weakest generation now with regards to their levels of testosterone. So the body is really important. And then, I do also ask, and it's a double question here, Deborah, but I do also ask God, men get sperm and get testosterone kicking in whatever age, 12, 13, and, the females get the estrogen and their testosterone kicking in and start with their period and that. And then they get a desire. They get a desire for the sexual intimacy, and get a sexual urges and libidos. And now they have to suppress that for so long, generally because they're at school, and it wouldn't be time to engage in those often, especially, with the different things and possibilities that can happen from abuse to having children and that. So maybe answer that from a body perspective, what you're seeing the biggest problem is, and then comments on just these dysfunctional hormonal imbalances that I'm seeing.
Ooh, those are all really great questions. And certainly I too know about the dysfunction in terms of the hormonal imbalances, which has been fascinating to me over the years. I had a girlfriend of mine who lives in, where does she live? She lives actually in Thailand. And she's American, but and she's had her daughter over there, and her daughter was having incredible surges of estrogen at the age of 9. And so, it was like, what is going on? So I think, the first thing that we need to look at is also just our environment, and what are we eating? And, again, what are we drinking out of? And all of the different phytoestrogens that are out there now, particularly, I mean, this is affecting every human, it doesn't matter your gender. So, and this is the hormonal disruptors that are simply out in the world now. I mean, we could go down the line of EMFs, I'm not sure if your community, is probably into things like that.
No, they are.
right? So, I mean, it's from the energetic level. Nobody can get away from Wi-Fi, right? So there are all of these environmental pieces that have radically affected our health and our levels of hormones, because, right, I mean, it goes to our adrenals, which then regulates our endocrine system, which then throws off our hormones, which I know very well because I went through perimenopause in my 30s. Now, I healed from it, but to have had that experience, which was really instigated and brought on by extraordinary stress, and nutritional stress, as well as emotional stress. But once I learned about that, I got very passionate about being in the body. Okay. Because when we do get in our oracle, and when we are much more comfortable in our bodies, and we have more of an awareness of our sense of embodiment, it's not necessarily going to change, to completely mitigate what's going on in the environment. However, it is going to help tremendously. And it does, and I have seen it help regulate women's hormones. I don't know about men, but I do know it has helped to regulate some women's hormonal issues, including my own. So one of the most basic things, and sometimes the most basic things, women have said to me, how is that going to work? It seems too simple, right? I'm like, here's the deal. The feminine energy likes to complicate things. Let's just call it what it is. So yes, ladies, you might think something super simple is not going to have any effect. Just try it, right? Just take it on for 7 days. So what I'm about to share is something incredibly simple. It might not be easy, right? That's the part where we get in the way and make things complicated. But what I'm about to share is so simple. And it's literally first thing in the morning, before your feet hit the floor, before you get out of bed, take your hand, put it on your power center, that second beautiful power center below your belly button, above your pubic bone, and say hello. I mean, I just put my hand on mine right now, and I feel a surge of warmth. I feel a surge of connection. I can feel right now this energy actually going up my spine, up to the top of my head. And I'm feeling a little bit more giddy, right? So I've been practicing this for a long time, so I kind of have an instantaneous response. You might not feel anything when you do this for the first day or 2, or maybe even 3. What you are going to be doing, though, is creating a new neuro pathway to say, hello, I actually want to be connected with my mojo. I am ready to be connected with my life force. And it's not a coincidence that your home of mojo in your physical body is low. We're not talking about our head. We're not talking about our throat, right? It's not our heart space. Our power center, our life force is low in our body. And again, nobody teaches us to have a relationship in this way. But when you do, just give yourself a 7-day challenge. Wake up in the morning, 60 seconds, put your hand on your power center. And what women have told me once they have taken this on and do this, because sometimes I just post this on social media for women to do, and they will comment back and say, it seems kind of weird, but I started to wake up the next week with more energy. I don't know. It seems too simple, Deborah, but honestly, I think I was less stressed. I don't know, Deborah, I started to actually smile at myself in the mirror a little bit more. Again, these things can seem so simple. However, when you reduce your level of stress in any way, shape, or form, you are going to help to regulate, right, that imbalance in your biology. And the more that you do that, and the more, again, confident and comfortable you become in your skin, again, the better you're going to feel holistically.
Brilliant. That is amazing. And I mean, it sits on the continuum, doesn't it, Deborah? There are people that are dissociated. They don't want to touch. They don't want to see the yoni. They just don't want anything to do with it. There's a disconnect and a dissociation with any parts of their genitalia. So I think that's crucially important. I mean, we try and use a bit of photobiomodulation a lot with females and males, to get some red light and some infrared, and there's some nice research, and we use a product called Flex Beam that we bring here because it just is so multifunctional with regards to pain and bringing light to that area. We don't get enough light to that area. We illuminate it in many aspects. So obviously there's a number of sexual toys that I do want to get to because you've got so much experience and that. But let's go to J, which is, you know, the roles. And I think this is fundamentally important just with the multiple roles that, you know, women and men are facing, and to change the roles is difficult, which is obviously change the environment, change the roles, change who you are so that it changes your mindset, and you change your mindset, it starts having different effects on the body and on your energy, on the mojo. So give us some tips or some advice how, you know, people can get, you know, that role specific of actually I'm a sexual being and I can allow my chi and my mojo to flow through me sexually for great intimacy. And that's what I love the quote in the beginning of your book, because it is just so sacred and it is so special, and it is something that I believe is for everyone, like you've said.
Yeah. And I love that. And that quote, by the way, is from Toni Jones. She's a beautiful singer and songwriter. And that's, you know, from a song of hers. And, you know, it's interesting you're saying to change. And one thing I'm going to do a little rewrite on that at the moment, which is, I think it's about unveiling, it's undressing. Okay. We're not changing ourselves. You're actually just undressing what has covered up who you naturally are.
Yeah.
Right. So that's things, you know, so many were like, oh, they come to me, they're like, I couldn't possibly, you know, be a sexual being like that. You know, only bad girls do that, right? Or I couldn't possibly do that because it goes against what my parent told me, or it goes against whatever it might be. But what happens is everybody realizes, yes, you too have this beautiful, for the ladies, I like to call her the Mojolicious femme in you. She's the one that knows the body. She's the part of you that knows like what her pleasure is. And she does not care what anybody has to say about it, right? She is consensual. She certainly is honoring of other people's boundaries and also their needs and desires, but she has no shame. And it's so to discover this part of you. One of the ways that I help women in terms of, and men can do this too. This technique is not gender specific, okay? But this is about discovering those roles. And there's a simple, really formula. And I have a spreadsheet that I give to my clients because we have multiple roles. But the first thing is to give that part of you a name. Maybe you're going to take on Mojolicious Femme. Maybe that part of you, you're going to call Marilyn because you just love Marilyn Monroe. But consider, what would you call this part of yourself? You know, what is their name? I think like Eartha Kitt. There was one woman who had come to one of my retreats and she named hers Eartha, right? Because Eartha Kitt, like she was Catwoman for a while, all the rest of it. Very, you know, very in touch with that part of her sensual, sassy self. So name this part of yourself, because again, it's in there. Then what is the strength? Like if you were going to say this part of you, if you needed this kind of quality, what would that signature strength be of this role? Is it that they're just super self-expressed? Is it that they're kind of just magical? Because you know, when you get into that space of your fully expressed sensuality and sexuality, it's pretty magical. So for you, there could be a specific nuance of what the strength is for this role of yours. And then consider, what's the signature outfit? When you imagine yourself as this aspect of yourself, what are you wearing or not wearing? Right? Some women, you know, there's like beautiful negligees. Other women see this part of themselves in more like kind of black leathery, you know, more, I don't know, dominatrix type of a sense of outfit. So again, this is nuanced for each individual. Consider when you imagine, and now we're just playing. This is like when we were kids playing dress up, right? So you can just get more free about it. How do you imagine this role in an outfit? Or again, maybe it's just a piece of jewelry, right? Maybe this part of yourself is like, she just wears actually, one woman said this, I'm remembering now. She said, I just wear diamonds, nothing else. I thought, that's awesome. Now, if you have this outfit or, parts of this outfit, this is where now you can take yourself on a play date. You don't have to go out. This can be in your own bedroom, your living room, your kitchen. It doesn't have to be with anybody else. Take this part of you, this role, out on a date. Set a timer, 20 minutes. That's really, I think, the minimum, but you can go for longer. But give yourself that container. Because the thing also, and this is where we're getting into masculine and feminine, the yin and the yang, right? In terms of dynamics, the feminine flow is everywhere all the time, kind of octopus brain, right? Doesn't like necessarily having restrictions. But the masculine energy, that yang energy, does like barriers. It gives the, A to B, it gives the structure. And honestly, when you do have structure, that feminine flow has more freedom to do what it will do naturally. That's why giving yourself a time structure it supports you in having more freedom when you give this play date for yourself. So play date can be anything from, I'm going to put on some music, maybe pour a glass of whatever you love, just walk around your room. As strange as that sounds, you're like, I've walked around my room every day my whole life, Deborah. No, well, you haven't done it as this role, 100% as this role. So you're on a play date as this particular aspect of yourself. Not the working person aspect, not the mom role, not the dad role. Right? We're specifically taking that sensual, mojo-licious, as I call it, the mojo-licious femme role. That's the one you're hanging out with for 20 minutes. What is this going to do? It's going to allow, again, your body to access the natural energy that is already in there, that is desperate to be expressed through you, to have a place to do that. And do it once a week, maybe do it once every other week. What's going to happen is you are going to have more freedom with this part of yourself, so that when it's time to be intimate with your partner, or when you're meeting a new person and you're considering getting intimate, right? It's not so awkward. You have capacity with this part of yourself for yourself. And when you have ownership of it, now you can have confidence with it.
Brilliant. So like role playing in a certain way to become comfortable and express yourself and undress yourself in a way that can just, allow you to be the unique person that you are sexually as well. Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. You did touch on Oasis, but any other sort of things you would like to share, or tips or advices with regards to Oasis, which is the last MOJO part of it?
For sure. Yeah. This is, just think about your bedroom. It's the thing that's closest to you. So it has the greatest effect on your life. Those things that are closest to us will have a bigger impact. So your bedroom, we spend about a quarter to a third of our life in bed, right? So when I think about that, my grandmothers lived until their 90s. That's 30 years. It's a lot of time. Okay. So you want to make sure that your bedroom is a space that will fuel your mojo, and certainly be one that inspires you to be intimate, whether it's with yourself or with a partner. And just think of the 3 R's: rest, romance, rejuvenation. If there's anything else in your bedroom, you want to get it out. There are people say, oh, Deborah, I live in a studio. My whole space is my bedroom. Well, find a way to artfully and craftfully, and, you can do it with all sorts of different decorating ways. Go onto Pinterest and find ideas, but find a way to create some sanctity just around the bed and separate it from the rest of the space. If you have a bigger home, wonderful, but look at your bedroom. I guarantee you there's at least one thing in there that does not fit under the guidance of rest, romance, or rejuvenation, whether it's a library of books that, you just have stacks of, or you have a desk in there that's work, or you've got workout equipment that's in there. All of this steals from your natural mojo. You want that bedroom space really to be an oasis for rest, romance, and rejuvenation.
Brilliant. Wonderful. When we look at patients and clients and that look at lifestyle behavior patterns to change to help people, the different parts of their life, and then look at supplementation, obviously some medication that can help and support people with regards to the different phases of their life. And then obviously look at the, the tools or the hacks and the toys and with regards to sexuality. From a lifestyle perspective, what have you found has been very, very beneficial for people with their sexuality?
Well, definitely about the bedroom, to make it much more of a sanctuary. And then, to have some kind of a self-pleasuring practice. If that's something that you don't do, or you just self-pleasure to relieve stress, which is fine, that's not a bad thing. But if it's the only way that you self-pleasure and the only times or reasons you self-pleasure, there's a whole world that is being missed of the kind of vastness and expansion of what's possible for you in terms of your own pleasure, what actually new desires might be there that you haven't discovered. And as people age, I mean, I am now postmenopausal, so there's been a whole other way to explore what's going on in this body, right, as opposed to what was going on in my body 10 years ago. And so if you have a kind of self-pleasuring practice, you'll be able to notice the difference and the nuances and the changes of not only your body, but what is going to be arousing to you at different stages and phases of your life. And so I think you can do that in a variety of ways. And they're wonderful tools and they're wonderful toys. For every human, I cannot stress enough, make sure that you have lube. Right. I still can't believe this is a kind of a point of shame for people. And, and it's a point of, that sort of like macho masculinity. Well, you won't need lube with me because I'm going to get you so hot. It's like, no, that's not, you might be getting someone hot, but like lube is hot, right? Your own, as well as, in a bottle. But please make sure that it's a healthy, because there's plenty of lubes that have terrible things in them, and you don't want to be putting those in or, in your body.
You have one that you recommend? Because I think that is a crucial factor that I see more and more.
Yeah, I'm one brand that has a variety that, for all genders that I really love is called Sliquid. They make a beautiful, beautiful lube. There's, and for women there, it's called, it has the word SEA in it because it has a beautiful sort of marine marine pieces in it in the lube that is really great for the pH of a yoni. So that I absolutely love. And they make all sorts of lubes for different play. If you want to play with your, back door, just keeping it clean here for this podcast. Sure. But, so they make a variety and they're all clean ingredients. That's really the most important part. Also, just to be aware, if you're using latex condoms, not all lube is going to keep you STD safe. So you want to make sure that at that point you're using water, not silicone-based lubes, right? So those, definitely to have a lot of lube in your life.
Brilliant. Okay,
of primary importance.
Supplements or medications or anything you have found being very beneficial for people and in terms of sexuality and intimacy?
Yeah, I mean, that I actually, I'm going to leave in your department because it's so dependent on your biochemistry and your own blood work, right? Because one supplement might be great for me, but it's not going to be great for, another woman that is having a different kind of hormonal imbalance. And that takes fine tuning. So, for me, I'm like, eat as cleanly as possible. I mean, I love to indulge. I like the sweets and all the rest of that, but I always say, do your best to eat as cleanly as possible and work with a functional medicine doctor, because that is going to keep you the healthiest that you could be.
Brilliant. Things like EFT, EMDR, body talk, body stress release, Tai Chi, Qigong. What have your patients and your clients sort of said with regards to what's really helped their sexuality?
Yeah, all of it. Really. But again, this is, there's not one technique for everybody. But what every woman who has come to work with me that has said, it is the embodiment practices. So this is much more about, I would say, the somatic therapies. This is about body talk, having a conversation with your body, learning about the different parts, where the upsets are coming from, where do they live in the body? And most specifically, the physical, embodiment and movement practices. I've created a certain set of them through my work that's written about in the book as well. Those are the things that women have said, I could have never described this because it's a little hard to talk about. It's so experiential, but those are the things that without a shadow of a doubt, every woman has said has been the biggest game changer.
Brilliant. Talk about your, last, we're coming to the end of the show, but a power center that you think is very important. I mean, I know they're all important. You've put them in an incredible way and your book's great, but maybe just share one of the power centers that you think is important.
Well, we talked about the one that I focus on most in the world of Rock Your Mojo, which is our second power center. And that's the home of your mojo. We've definitely covered that. It's sort of obvious because if you're not connected with your mojo, it's going to be very challenging in life. But the other one that I'm going to highlight, because they are deeply and intimately connected, is the fifth power center, which is your throat. And this is the seat of self-expression. And what's fascinating to me, as I've learned over the years, is we've got this thing called the vagus nerve, which I'm sure, of course, and it goes from our fifth power center down to our second power center. And so when you do open up and you work with your sense of self-expression, so that's your fifth power center. It is also opening your second, and vice versa. When you work with your second power center, it's helping to open your fifth. There is not necessarily, I haven't found a scientific study that has said, hey, it is because of this vagal nerve connection. It seems to me that, that's what's going on in terms of why these two are intimately connected. But the other thing about these two centers, which just on a biological level fascinated me, and I put this up at the women's events and talks that I give when I do them live, because there's a slide that I bring up, and it's a cross section of the larynx. And then there's a slide of the cross section of the yoni. And when you put them up, right, side by side, you think women are like, no, that's your yoni. That's just down there. And it's like, well, no, this one's actually your larynx and this one is actually your yoni. The biological structure of them is nearly identical. And to me, that is so fascinating and goes back to just the perfection of how we've been created. So these two, your second and your fifth power centers, I think are important ones to highlight for sure, because they do work in conjunction with one another. When one opens, so does the other.
Brilliant. Okay, so tell us about your book, where people can get it, where they can pre-order it, when you're releasing it, and all the details of where people can find you.
Sure. So Undressed, an invitation to claim your erotic nature. It's for pre-order now, and you can find it at undressedbook.com. And when you go there, you can choose whichever bookseller that you would like to purchase through. But the bonus of going there is that you actually get pre-order bonuses. The book hits the world officially. It'll be in your hands, or on your devices on October 24th. But when you pre-order, here's the deal. You're making a vote. You're saying, I actually think this information is important. It says that to the publisher, to the booksellers, and it really helps the life of the book. But it's also telling your communities, we want this information in the world. So pre-orders, people think, no big deal. It's actually a really big deal. So thank you for pre-ordering. And as a thank you, I put together some bonuses. One of them people are loving. You actually get to hear me read you the beginning of the book. So you don't have to wait until October. You can start listening to the book right away. And that's again at undressedbook.com. My website is where people find me, Deborah-Kagan.com. But I also love to play on Instagram, and I'm at Deborah Kagan there. So send me a DM, come hang out on the gram.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Just regarding the book, is this for teenagers, or what age do you think people can get the book and get value from it and start some education in a way that is, I think, very constructive? Like I said, everybody's being educated sexually. It doesn't matter where you think you are or not, where you think it's good or it's bad, you are receiving an education. And so what do you think the appropriate ages and people that should be picking up the book from?
Yeah, 18 plus, because again, the book is structured in 7 sections, and each section, it begins with the overview of the power center. So you can understand, what is this power center? Why do I even need to know about it? How is it working? How do I know it's not working? So it starts with that. And then it moves into the get you in the mood memoir piece, but that is an erotic story, which is why the book specifically 18 plus. They're elegant stories. They're actually, quite important because they're about consciousness and our personal evolution, but they are written with an adult voice. And those are the kind of amuse-bouche, right? Again, the get you in the mood. And then the next part of each section is the your turn. And that's where I walk you through a sexual practice as well as a spiritual practice to open and honor and awaken each of those power centers. So that's what you get when you go through the book. And it's, I would say, 18 plus for sure.
Brilliant. Deborah, last question, because I think this is important. I've got a teenager, and how should we, address this whole process of education with teenagers? Now you said 18 plus, great. Let the parents read it and be able to educate and filter it through to their teenagers. But like I said, there's this robust bunch of hormones flowing through you at 14 or 15. And now what do you do with it? And many, women suppress that and depress that, and then expect in 10 years time, especially in very religious circles, expect in 10 years time just to be able to undress themselves and express themselves. And it's not as simple as a switch. So what advice would you have for teenagers out there?
Well, the first thing is, for teenagers, I'm going to get to that in a moment. But before that is for parents to heal themselves, for parents to have a healthy relationship with their own sexuality, with their own sexual energy, right? This is the way that you're going to be able to help to educate your children. And right, the first line is at home. So for parents, this is for you to do whatever work that you need to do to get in a space that you can have conversations and to support your children in a healthful way. Now, for teenagers, I think this is about being able, it goes back to Napoleon Hill, actually, in this sex transmutation. It's about channeling that energy in a way that is appropriate for where you are in your life at this moment, right? We're not going to suggest go run around and start having sex all over the place, because that's just not appropriate at that age. You're not at a time where you can really make those decisions yet. And so to channel that energy in a way that is going to honor the actual just mechanics of the energy moving through is going to be helpful. So for teenage boys, that might be sports. It might be martial arts. It might be music, might be channeling that and playing instruments, right? That's a great way to channel that energy. It could be dance. These things, by the way, boys or girls, this is not gender specific. But certainly I know, even just my sweet young niece, she's just turned 10, so she's still young, but she's got a lot of this energy moving through her already. And she's a dancer, right? And so the encouragement of that movement and literally that movement through her body is helping to have a free expression of this hormonal surge that starts to activate and then grow and grow and grow. So when you can foster a space and a place for your children to be able to do something that moves the energy through them, I think that's going to be the best thing to do at these early stages. And then, of course, to have open conversation about if they're starting to feel, I'm starting to feel aroused, because that is real, and talk about how you can take that feeling and move it in a way that is healthful.
Just so much wisdom, Deborah. Thank you so much. Years of experience there, and just the way you articulate and communicate is brilliant. The book is well written, so thank you so much. Just want to declare favor and blessing over you, and just send just abundant love and joy to you, that you would continue in this incredible calling. We need people like you, more and more people like you, to really take the shame and the guilt. Those are big words, that we want to remove people, and so that they can express themselves and undress themselves in the most appropriate, intimate way. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And I appreciate you for all of the work that you're doing and being such a strong voice in this conversation.